Imagine walking into a high-end boutique and seeing a pile of trash bags priced at $1,800 each. Most people would call it a scam, but for Balenciaga, it was a calculated move that set the internet on fire. This is not just a fashion house. It is a psychological experiment designed to test the limits of what we consider luxury. While other brands strive for perfection and elegance, Balenciaga has mastered the art of being intentionally ugly, confusing, and controversial. They do not want your admiration. They want your outrage. In this video, we are diving deep into the dark, brilliant, and often disturbing world of a brand that turned scandals into a multi-billion-dollar empire. Welcome to Zero to Billion, where we decode the secrets of the world's most powerful entities. The story of Balenciaga begins with Cristobal Balenciaga, a man Christian Dior called the master of us all. He was a purist who focused on architecture, silhouette, and the absolute mastery of fabric. For decades, the brand was synonymous with the highest tier of Parisian elegance. But after Cristobal passed away and the brand went dormant, it needed a radical rebirth to survive the modern era. That rebirth came in the form of Demna Gvasalia, a designer who understood something most CEOs are too afraid to admit. In the age of the social media algorithm, negative attention is more valuable than positive praise. Demna took the heritage of a couture giant and injected it with the DNA of internet trolling, transforming Balenciaga from a dusty relic into the most talked-about name in fashion. The strategy was simple yet devastatingly effective. Balenciaga began releasing items that seemed like a joke. They sold a blue tote bag for over $2,000 that looked identical to the 99-cent IKEA bag. They released sneakers that looked like they had been pulled out of a landfill, pre-destroyed and covered in dirt, retailing for 4 times the price of a standard luxury shoe. The public went into a frenzy. News outlets covered the absurdity, people on Twitter mocked the buyers, and memes flooded every platform. But while the world laughed, Balenciaga was winning. Every mocking tweet was free advertising. They realized that if you can make someone angry enough to comment, you have already captured their attention. This was the birth of shock marketing as a primary business model. By leaning into what many called disaster fashion, Balenciaga created a new kind of social status. It was no longer about looking wealthy in a traditional sense. It was about being in on the joke. Owning a Balenciaga piece became a signal that you were wealthy enough to spend thousands on something intentionally ridiculous. It was a flex of power and influence. The brand leveraged this by partnering with the biggest icons of our time, most notably Kanye West and Kim Kardashian. By dressing these figures in full-body spandex and gimp masks, they pushed the boundaries of what was acceptable in the public eye. They turned red carpets into performance art, ensuring that no matter who else was there, the only brand people talked about the next morning was Balenciaga. However, the strategy of constant escalation eventually led them to the edge of a cliff. In late 2022, the brand released a campaign that crossed a line the public was not willing to forgive. The imagery featured children holding teddy bears dressed in BDSM-themed harnesses, combined with legal documents in the background referencing a Supreme Court ruling on child pornography. The backlash was instantaneous and global. For the first time, the outrage was not just about a weird shoe or a high price tag. It was a moral condemnation. The brand was hit with boycotts, celebrities distanced themselves, and the very foundation of their shock value empire began to crumble. It was a moment of reckoning that proved that while controversy can build a brand, it can also destroy it if the boundary of human decency is breached. In the aftermath of the greatest crisis in their history, Balenciaga had to pivot. The era of pure trolling had to end, or at least go underground. They issued apologies, scrubbed their social media, and returned to the runway with a renewed focus on the craftsmanship that Cristobal Balenciaga was originally known for. They began to emphasize tailoring and high-fashion silhouettes once again, trying to remind the world that beneath the scandals, there was still a house of immense technical skill. This shift showed the resilience of a luxury giant. They didn't just disappear. They evolved, proving that the journey from zero to billion is not a straight line, but a series of peaks and valleys defined by how a brand manages its own narrative. Today, Balenciaga exists in a strange middle ground. They are still the kings of the unconventional, but they move with more caution. They taught the industry that a brand is no longer just a product. It is a conversation. Whether you love them for their boldness or hate them for their tactics, you cannot ignore them. They proved that in a crowded market, the loudest voice often wins, even if that voice is saying something people hate to hear. They redefined luxury for the 21st century, shifting the focus from beauty to relevance. As long as people are talking, the brand stays alive. The rise, fall, and survival of Balenciaga serves as a masterclass in brand psychology. It shows us that luxury is not about the object itself, but the story we tell about it. It reveals the power of the attention economy and the dangers of pushing the envelope too far. As the world moves forward, other brands will surely try to mimic the Balenciaga blueprint, but few will have the courage to be as divisive. Thank you for watching this deep dive into the business of controversy. If you want to see more stories of luxury, power, and the secrets of the world's biggest brands, make sure to subscribe. This is Zero to Billion, and we will see you in the next one.